This case is set on the court's docket for the continuation of an adversary. We started it was set on 4/4. The parties asked for a reset. Ms. Houston asked for a reset. We came back on 4/25. The court heard about an hour and a half, if not more at that time. We ran out of time. So we reset for today to conclude the adversary hearing. The department is present through Ms. West. Robin Houston is the attorney ad litem for the children. Casa is the guardian ad litem. Mr. Crosby, if you can get Casa added in as the guardian ad litem for the children. Mr. McLeod is present with the mother, Sabrina Manor. Mr. Dennis is present with the father of the LaFleur children, Jardel LaFleur. And Mr. Porter is present. We're still waiting on his attorney who's had some technical difficulties.
I have him on my phone, Judge.
All right. Mr. McClinton, can you speak up so we can hear you?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm trying to get on a different device right now, but I should be on just a second.
All right. I'll watch the lobby, and if you can come into the lobby, I'll bring you in. All right. On 4/25, the department rests. It's my recollection that Mr. Dennis rested, and then Mr. McLeod had called a couple of witnesses. Judy James was the last witness.
Yes, ma'am.
And did everyone rest with regard to Ms. James?
Oh, Ms. James, I think
I
so.
believe so, Your Honor.
All right. Your next witness, Mr. McLeod.
Donna Davis, Judge. Ms. Davis, do you know the father of these children, Mr. LaFleur?
I do.
And have you ever been in a relationship with Mr. LaFleur?
Yes.
And when was that time period, please, ma'am?
From 2019 until I moved out in 2022, February 22.
Okay. And were you present at the hearing? I guess it was about 2 weeks ago when this hearing started.
Yes.
And during that hearing, did you hear testimony regarding an incident between Ms. Manor, the mother of the children, and Mr. LaFleur in front of her house?
Yes.
And that was, I believe the testimony was in 2021. Would that be correct?
2020, I believe.
2020. Okay. And were you were in a relationship with Mr. LaFleur at that time?
Yes, sir.
Were you with Mr. LaFleur when that incident occurred?
Yes.
When that incident occurred, was a gun involved by either party?
Yes.
And by whom, ma'am?
Jardel LaFleur.
And can you tell the court how that gun, how you saw that gun, or what Mr. LaFleur was doing with it?
Judge, I'm going to object to this point to relevance. This witness is clearly biased and is appearing for the mother. This happened years ago.
Overruled.
This has nothing.
Go ahead. You may answer, ma'am.
Okay. Can you repeat the question, exactly what you'd like to hear?
I'll try, and I'm sorry if I word things a little confusing. Really, what I'm asking, how did you see? How was the gun involved in that incident? What happened?
We dropped the children off after a visitation. Jardel asked Sabrina to be home so they could talk about some discipline issues that he disagreed with. So we drove over to Hewitt to her home. The kids got out, went inside. He told her to come outside, to tell their mom to come outside. So Sabrina and Christian both came outside and were at the end of the driveway. I stayed inside the car, and Jardel had left the passenger door open. They started arguing, words were exchanged. Christian went into the street, and I could see him out my driver rearview mirror. They were screaming about the fight. Jardel reached into the car, like next to the passenger seat, in between where the seat and the door would have met, and grabbed an object. I honestly thought he was grabbing his phone. He set it on top of the car, and then they kept arguing. And then I heard Sabrina scream, Donna, you let him bring a gun to my house. So I immediately got out of the car. And when I got out of the car, he had the gun pointing at Sabrina, and he cocked the gun back. And I told him to get in the car, stop, and let's go.
Did he follow your instructions?
Not right away. It took a few moments of screaming for me to get him to get in the car.
And during those moments of screaming, was he pointing the handgun at Ms. Manor?
Yes.
Did he make any threat? Other than pointing it at her and pulling the slide back, did he make any verbal threat to her at that time?
Not that I heard.
Okay. And after he got back in the car, did y'all leave?
We did, and we went back to our residence in Lacey Lakeview.
Did he give you any excuse or reason for having pulled the gun on Ms. Manor?
No.
Pass the witness.
Mr. McClinton,
No questions.
Ms. Houston,
Just briefly, Your Honor, Ms. Davis, did you see either of the children or any of the children during that incident?
What, I'm not sure which child, but one of the children was peering out of the window.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Ms. West,
Ma'am, have you seen the children since February 2022?
I've seen them in, I believe it was around March or April. And
Ma'am, of this year or of last year?
last year.
So you've not seen them since March or April of 2022?
Correct.
Pass witness.
Mr. Dennis,
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, Ms. Davis, you said that you stayed with Mr. LaFleur until 2022, February of 2022, correct?
Correct.
So even after this incident, you stayed with Mr. LaFleur in a relationship with him, correct?
Correct.
Were you living with him?
He was living with me.
Okay, so that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Did I take it from your statements to Mr. McLeod that you did not hear the conversation between Ms. Manor and Mr. Porter and Mr. LaFleur? Is that correct?
No.
So you don't know whether him pulling a gun was in relation to him making a threat, them making a threat, him defending himself, or anything like that, do you?
No.
All right. You're also here at the request of Ms. Manor, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So do you believe, and based on your your relationship with him, that he has ever threatened the children in this case?
Threatened the children?
Correct.
No.
All right. Has he ever placed the children in danger with this supposed gun that you have seen or know about?
Placed them in danger?
Correct.
He exposed them to that.
Well, Miss Manor has a gun too, correct?
I'm not sure. I've never seen Miss Manor's gun.
Okay. Did Mr. LaFleur ever point the gun at the children?
No, they were
Did he ever
inside.
threaten to shoot the children?
Mr.
No.
Mr. Dennis, let her
Yes, Your
finish her answer before you start your next question.
Did he ever threaten to shoot the children?
No.
Did he ever threaten to use the gun on the children?
No.
So you really don't know anything other than Mr. LaFleur had a gun and pulled it at this incident, correct?
Correct.
You don't know whether Mr. Porter or Ms. Manor had a gun at that incident, correct?
I did not see a gun.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Mr. McLeod, anything further of this witness?
Well, just to clarify, Ms. Davis, just again, did you see anyone else at this incident with a handgun or any type of firearm?
No.
Did you hear anyone other than Mr. LaFleur? Well, I guess you didn't even hear that. Did you hear Ms. Manor or Mr. Porter say anything that they were getting a gun or going to use a gun?
No.
Okay. And Mr. LaFleur didn't just point the gun at Ms. Manor. He actually pulled the slide back and chambered around or appeared to, correct?
Correct.
And was he pointing it to at any, could you tell from where you were sitting or when you got out, was he pointing the gun at any particular part of her body?
Her head.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Any further witnesses, Mr. McLeod?
No other witnesses, Judge.
Any witnesses, Mr. McClinton?
My client has told me in the past he wants to testify, but I've told him not to.
All
I don't know
right.
what see if he insists on it, but I'm advising him against it.
Mr. Porter, if you'll again put yourself where we can see you so that I can know that you're able to see and hear us. If you'll unmute yourself, your lawyer has indicated that you want to testify. Mr. McClinton, do you and Mr. Porter need a minute to talk?
We've talked on last.
I'm not testify.
Y'all were both speaking at the same time, so I really couldn't understand Mr. Porter's response.
No, I will not testify.
Okay, all right. So no witnesses,
No.
Mr. McClinton? Any witnesses, Ms. Houston?
Your Honor, I would call Amy Wiley briefly. And what
right.
is your role in this case concerning the LaFleur and Porter children?
I'm the conservatorship caseworker.
And have you had an opportunity to meet with the children?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many times have you been with the children?
Oh, I don't have an exact amount. However, since April, I have seen them every Monday, at least. And I know I saw them at least on 3 other occasions.
And have you had an opportunity to visit with them about just their lives and the case in general?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is your impression currently of how the children feel about their living situation?
They are not happy with it.
And have they given you any specifics as to what their concerns are?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Rephrase your question, Ms. Houston.
Have the children demonstrated to you any concerns?
Yes.
And without saying what they've said, is there anything that they brought to your attention that's concerning to the department?
Yes.
Do you believe that they're safe at their current placement?
If I may say, this part of this does go over into what is being investigated, but we don't have any evidence to show that they are not safe.
Okay, but they've expressed concerns to you from the beginning of the case.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
Ms. West?
I have no questions.
Mr. Dennis?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McLeod?
Ms. Wiley, when you said the investigation, what investigation are you referencing?
So there have been 2 investigations in this case. The original one, which brought us into this case and led to the removal. And then there's been a secondary investigation on Mr. LaFleur and his home.
Okay. And I'm going to go back to the incident that happened in the CPS parking lot. I'm not sure whether you were on the case at that point in time. Has the department, to your knowledge, ever obtained the police report regarding, or any final word regarding the police investigation regarding that incident?
I can't really speak to that as that's part of the investigation. I do know that the investigator did speak to the police, but I don't know if a report was ready, if the police had a report ready to be picked up or not.
Okay. Thank you. Pass the witness.
Mr. McClinton?
No witnesses, Your Honor. No questions.
Anything further of this witness, Ms. Houston?
No, Your Honor.
Your next witness?
Your Honor, I'm not calling Ms. Goldsmith as a witness, but I would like her to be able to convey Casa's impressions in this matter.
All right, Ms. Goldsmith, Casa's position. Or actually, if you're not going to testify, let me go ahead and get argument from all the lawyers, and then I'll get your recommendation at the end. No further witnesses? Argument, Ms. West?
Your Honor, in this case, the department's position is that the children should remain each in their current placements, and that at this time, the department sees no need for there to be any further involvement with the department as it relates to the LaFleur children. So the department would ask to be dismissed and for Mr. LaFleur to be named the temporary managing conservator of those children. And then for Nyla, for that child to remain in her placement and for the department to be named the temporary managing conservator.
Thank you. Mr. Dennis?
Thank you, Your Honor. My client was asking for temporary managing conservatorship of his children, for you to dismiss the department and all the attorneys, and for him to take up a final hearing or upstairs in district court at his leisure. I would ask that you order his child support to stop and Ms. Manor to pay him guideline child support going forward, starting at the first of the month of next month. I would ask that her visitation be supervised by a professional third party, and that can include the department as the visits are set up with her other child, to include sibling visits and visits with mom. But if not by the department, then by a third party supervisor that she pays for. Judge, it's clear in this case that there is issues between mom and dad that are ongoing. And I would like to remind you of the testimony of the last time we were here a couple of weeks ago. These children have been making outcries against Mr. Porter for a while now. In fact, have been outcries to multiple professional reporters. Ms. Manor's testimony shows that she is only concerned about her own well-being and the well-being of Mr. Porter, and not necessarily her children. She is more concerned at this point with talking about why Mr. LaFleur is a bad person, and has presented no evidence that he is not a danger to the children, but is more concerned with, how the department is treating her and him and Mr. Porter rather than whether her children are safe. All of this talk about a gun being used a couple of years ago, there is no evidence that the children were harmed or that the children even saw the gun or the incident. There is no testimony about what happened at the incident. There's no testimony about who said what or what allegations were made. All we've heard from is Miss Donna Davis, who is an ex of my client and clearly has a bias and is here on Miss Manor's behalf. The department has done a lot of investigation into my client, including requesting multiple drug tests, multiple home visits, and has made it very difficult to deal with and provide for these children, and still has nothing to show for their efforts. So at this time, we're asking for temporary managing conservatorship.
Thank you. Mr. McLeod?
Well, Judge, this isn't about Ms. Manor right now. She's stipulated. The children have been removed from her, placed with the department. This is about the question of whether the children or the two older children are safe with Mr. LaFleur. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Dennis's representation of things. We had an incident with the girls present in the parking lot of CPS, where by Mr. LaFleur's own admission, he threatened to shoot Ms. Manor in the face. He said that. He confirmed that. If this was a one-off situation, it'd be one thing, but we've had testimony that he actually pulled a gun and pointed it at Ms. Manor's head just now. Now, that was a couple of years ago, granted, but this is a guy who regularly makes threats and takes steps to carry them out. The girls were present in the recent incident. Ms. Davis said that at least one of the children was looking out the window. I don't care if they were in the house or outside. They were present when their father pulled a gun, pulled the slide back, apparently chambering around, and pointed it at their mother's head, with no one else having a gun being around. There's been testimony that he's slapping or patting or whatever at least one of the kids on the behind. She's expressed discomfort with that. There's been testimony that the girls aren't comfortable there, that they don't feel safe. I think there's a dadgum good reason why they don't feel safe. And this court can take steps to protect the children in this case by not placing them with Mr. LaFleur. He's obviously got some issues, and he tends to pick up a gun at times when his emotions get away from him. So we'd ask the court to place the girls someplace else, but this is not a case of the court sending the case upstairs. This court is designed, this proceeding is designed to ensure the safety of the children, and that's what we would urge the court to do.
Thank you. Mr. McClinton?
Yes, Your Honor, regarding Mr. Porter and Nyla, first of all, he strongly disagrees with all these allegations contained in the affidavit. And we've gone over a lot of them, and he doesn't believe any of them are true. That being, he's not opposed to this case going forward. And regarding Nyla, he would ask that his sister be allowed to supervise his visits, and that he have phone visits and have a lot more access to Nyla. And that's his main concern at this issue, at this junction of the case.
Thank you. Ms. Houston?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor has had an opportunity to confer with the girls, and I'm going to just confirm that they do still express concerns about living with Mr. LaFleur. They have expressed that they don't feel safe, that they are concerned about living there on a continuous basis. They've expressed that they are comfortable with Miss Judy, and that she is doing the majority of caretaking for them, but that they have expressed fairly clearly that they don't want to live with their father. And I think that their wishes should, of course, be something that the court considers. As far as Nyla and her caregiver, I would not be in favor of her supervising visits at present, although I think possibly in the future that would be appropriate. I think we have to kind of see how things are progressing with Mr. Porter's part of the case before we make that determination.
What is your recommendation regarding placement of the LaFleur girls?
I don't believe that they should be placed back with their mother. I think that potentially if there was some some safeguards put in place, that they would be safe with their father. I think they are safe with Miss Judy. So my recommendation would be a monitor return with some supervision going forward, just to make sure that the girls are safe and that they get to the point where they feel comfortable in their new surroundings.
Thank you. Ms. Goldsmith from Casa.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Miss Houston as far as the supervising for Nyla. I don't think, as far as visits go, that the caregiver should supervise at this time, but maybe moving forward we could do that. As for the LaFleur children, this is an adjustment for them. This is hard for them. But being that they're happy with Miss Judy and they seem to have adjusted with her, I again agree with Miss Houston that if we maybe put some safety plans in place, possibly a monitor return, not just straight to TMC.
All right. What specific safeguards is either Casa or Ms. Houston recommending?
Well, I think for starters, it's really clear that whatever reason, and I don't know, I mean, we've all gotten here at the same time with this, that the girls and Mr. LaFleur definitely need some family counseling to rebuild the relationship. And like I said, I don't know really what the cause of that is. I'm not going to, I can't really dissect it, but I think that would be really important, just so that they have a communication base going forward. I'm concerned about all the firearms in all the houses. Just because normally I think, having one for protection, that's great. A lot of people do, but to me, it seems like that's kind of the elephant in the room right now. And I'm not sure if we could do something more than just the standard, making sure that they're following the rules with firearms in the houses. And those are the two things that I would think of currently.
With regard to Nyla, the court finds that there's a stipulation that there's a continuing danger to the physical health or safety if she's returned in continuation in the home of the mother at this time, or the father would not be contrary to the child's welfare. Court finds that the department made reasonable efforts, but this child is not able to return at this time. I will appoint the department the temporary managing conservator. I'll order that the mother and Mr. Porter will have 1 hour per week supervised by the department. Any problem with Mr. Porter and Ms. Manor putting their hours together, or is anyone believing that their visits need to be separate?
In regard to Nyla, I think they can
Yes.
share this. I don't have an issue with that.
All right. So Mr. Porter and Ms. Manor can put their 1 hour periods together to effectively have a 2 hour period with Nyla. That might cause an issue in just a second. We'll have to, y'all hold that thought. The parents will give notice by 3 o'clock the day before, or else the child will not be transported to the CPS office. I'll give discretion to the department and add litems to increase that visitation, or allow others to supervise when and if y'all determine that is in the best interest of Nyla. Drug testing for the mother and Mr. Porter will be pursuant to the color. All right. Any questions about Nyla at this time? With regard to the LaFleur children, the court finds that the department has met its burden of proof to remove the children from the mother. The court does find that Mr. LaFleur is considered a non-offending parent and that his children should be placed with him on a monitored return. The court will have visits with the LaFleur children. See, now here's the dilemma. If she visits with the children when she visits with Nyla, then Mr. Porter will not be part of that visit. So that's a choice that mom will make. If mom and Mr. Porter are going to have a 2 hour visit with Nyla, then those LaFleur girls will not be present during that visit, or else mom can have a 1 hour visit with all the children. And then at the end of that 1 hour visit, then Mr. Porter can have a visit with Nyla. It'll be one or the other, but there's no reason that Mr. Porter will be present during the LaFleur girls' visit with their mother. Everybody kind of on the same page of that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. When the mother is visiting with Nyla, I'm ordering an injunction that the mother will remain 100 yards from Mr. LaFleur's home, his work, and the children's school. The court finds that at this time, under the circumstances, it is not in the best interest of the children for the department to be dismissed at this time. It was really very sickening for me to see these beautiful girls. They are beautiful young ladies, and they are sweet. And they are in the middle of two parents. I can't even explain how I would like to say parents are acting. Y'all picked each other, and y'all have these children. Children get to come first, and they should not feel like they are in the middle of two grown-ups acting like this. You are hurting your children. You are not showing them how to grow up and be normal, well-adjusted people who know how to have a relationship. You are hurting your children, and if there's anything, I'm tempted to go put them somewhere else, far, far away. All of this talk about guns is disgusting to me. If I hear another incident of a gun being involved, of a gun being threatened, I expect that there will be a police report filed. That is a potential felony offense. And I will not have children in a home where I've got parents running around threatening people with guns, period. I'm ordering that has Mr. LaFleur taken any drug tests at all?
Yes, Your Honor, he's been negative on all the urinalysis he's taken.
But he hasn't taken a hair test.
Correct.
All right. Mr. LaFleur will be subject to random drug testing. That is hair, UA, nail, whatever the department requests. I am ordering that Mr. LaFleur's child support will stop effective now. I'm entering an injunction. No parent shall speak poorly of another parent, of another person. I don't want anybody, and no parent will allow another parent or another person to be bad-mouthing a grown-up in these children's lives. They got enough going on without being in the area where people are bad-mouthing people that they love, should have a relationship with. If parents don't drug test when they're supposed to, then their visits get stopped. That means if Mr. LaFleur does not take a test if requested, then the monitored return could be disrupted. I've signed 2 scheduling orders setting out the upcoming hearings. I'm going to announce those scheduling order in just a second. Mother and Mr. Porter shall remain 100 yards. Father shall remain, there's no reason that Mr. LaFleur should be within 100 yards of Miss Manor or Mr. Porter's home as well, correct? Y'all can just stay away from each other right now. And if it may be that the department needs to schedule the visits in such a way. Here's what I'm gonna order. Ms. Wiley, you along with the ad litems will figure out how we're gonna do those visits. If Miss Manor wants to visit with all 3 of her children at one time, then that visit will happen. And there will be a way for the LaFleur girls to leave the visit without seeing Mr. Porter. If that means go ahead, Ms. Wiley.
If I may, we have it right as it's been going, and I just want to make sure that this would be appropriate to you. We have Mr. Porter and Nyla visiting at the CPS office on Mondays from 2:30 to 3:30. Mr. Porter leaves immediately after that visit. Ms. Manor arrives at 3:40. The LaFleur children arrive at 3:45, and from 3:50 to 4:50, we have Ms. Manor visits with all 3 of the girls. She leaves at 4:50, and the children are picked up by their prospective caregiver / parent between 4:50 and 5:15.
That sounds like the best plan. I would also like somebody's coming through the front and somebody's coming through the back. I mean, I do not want there to be, and if you need to specify, Ms. Wiley, who uses the side entrance, who uses the front entrance, if somebody violates that plan and there's another altercation, there will be issues. The last thing these girls need to be in the middle of right there at the CPS office is another incident that happened like a couple of weeks ago. So I think, Ms. Wiley, y'all are on to a good plan. If you want to further elaborate exactly, parents don't need to arrive too early. They don't need to arrive too late. Set all that out. And then folks need to adhere to that. If you get there early, drive around the block till it's your time to drive in. I'm really serious about this. All right. So the status hearing for all children is May 22nd, 2023. Initial permanency on the LaFleur, initial permanency as to Nyla is September 5th. That is also the day of the second permanency and final of the LaFleur children. Are y'all going to do a permanency conference or FGC virtual or in person?
Judge, generally, if it's an FGC, if we're in the time limits, they do those in person. If it's a PC, they do them virtually.
Well, I bet we're out of timeline to do an FGC, aren't we? All right, so that means y'all are looking at virtual. That makes me feel a little bit better. I'd like to have, and y'all tell me, ultimately, it would be really great if these girls could love their dad and could love their mom, and mom and dad, regardless of how they feel about each other, can put their kids first. Part of that would include participating in the permanency conference all at the same time. You people might know better.
I really don't see that being a positive thing, but we'll discuss it with the parties and figure out what's best.
Well, hopefully grown-ups can figure out at some point how to hold their tongue and say things that are positive and constructive. And that is sort of a test of being a parent who can put their kid first. All right, parents, the law requires that I admonish you if you are unable or unwilling to provide a safe environment for your children, your parental rights could be subject to restriction or termination. If there's nothing further, we'll be in recess.
Judge, I do have one question for you,
All
please. Right. On the injunction as to mom in terms of not going to the girls' school, I understand that, and I'm not asking for anything to be lifted in that in a broad sense. I would tell the court, and I think the email went out yesterday to CPS and to Ms. Houston. And I'm sorry, I didn't send it to Casa, but the girls, or one of the girls, and I can't remember which one, I'm sorry, they have a graduation and a field day at their school. And we would ask the court to allow Ms. Manor to go to those two events to support the children. They're public events. It's not like they're going to be unsupervised. We'd ask that she be allowed to go to those. The other thing, and I'm not sure.
Wait, hold that thought. Ms. Houston, Ms. Goldsmith.
I sent the email to Casa. We got it kind of late yesterday, and we hadn't had a chance to discuss it. I think if it's a public event, unless Mr. LaFleur is planning also on going to it, and I don't know that his work schedule allows that. I just don't know. I think that's potentially there's enough eyes on there, so it should be safe. But I really wanted an opportunity to discuss that with Casa before we made a decision. So.
All right, 1 second, Ms. Wiley. Ms. Goldsmith.
I think it would be okay, but again, I'm kind of with Robin on this. I don't know if Jardel would be attending or what that would look like.
Ms. Wiley.
I spoke to Aria's school actually right before the hearing, and there is no graduation for first graders. So that is not an issue. As in regards to field day for Aria, it is on the 19th. They don't have the exact times. They told me to call back in a couple of days. They said that there are, so many adults that could attend. They are concerned if Ms. Manor and Mr. LaFleur are attending at the same time. And they said,
all right. No parents are attending. I'm not going to have an issue. That's the easy way to do it. No parents will attend that. I mean,
good. Sorry.
This is where we are, Mr. McLeod.
I understand, Judge. I was gonna bring up the other issue, but whenever you're ready to hear that.
Go ahead.
The other thing, and I'm a little unclear as to the details of it, and maybe the department can enlighten all of us. Ms. Manor had been able to access the school app on the girls to be able to check their grades and that type of thing. And right now she cannot do that. And I don't know whether the department, whether that's that they said that she can't. I'm not sure that the school just did that because CPS now has TMC or had, they've been.
Okay, hold that thought.
You know what?
Hold that thought. Any problem with mom being able to access the parent through the parent portal, the access to the academic information? That doesn't seem to violate any of my orders. She's still a possessory conservator. She ought to have that right.
I have no issue with her having access to the data on parent portal.
All right, Ms. Wiley, will you make sure the school is aware that mother is a possessory conservator and she has the right to continue to use, it used to be called parent portal when my kids were in school. I don't know if that's still what it's called. Whatever it's called, the mother should not be blocked from that.
Yes, Your Honor. I talked to Aria's school and they said that they are activating her portal so that she is able to see it. I just have to call Amaya's school as well to make that change.
Perfect. If there's nothing further, we'll be in recess. Thank you.